I would just like to very quickly say thank you to the Conduit and Freddie for organizing and Rosie for having us here today. And I would like to introduce Nicholas Janni, who is a phenomenal man who has created and written this book, Leader as Healers, which I think is probably one of the most profound books of our time today. And so, Nicholas, I'm so excited to be here with you today. A little bit about Nicholas. Nicholas has had a beautiful, rich life, which has given him a lot of things to pull from. So he's a musician. Correct me if I get any of this wrong. But a musician, he was the director of theater at the Academy of Arts, and he's been meditating since he was 16 years old. Kind of amazing. And he is a thought leader today on the word and understanding of pure presence. So, but today what he's doing more than anything else is he's actually a professional leader and coach for the top CEOs around the world, where he is working with them to guide them in leadership and in transformation. And he's phenomenal at it, which you'll be able to see in his book. You'll see all of his references from all these amazing people. And I am very happy for the Conduit and for Nicholas and I to be together, because we are on the same mission, because we know the world is changing and we need to step up to the plate. So I'm very happy to be together in this company. And I'm Natalie Monk. I'm the founder and CEO of Kalo, which is a platform which helps to empower people to take control of their health and their well-being. And we do it through curated journeys, and we help people live healthier and happier lives. But now, on to Nicholas, and much more important matters. Let's get on to the book. And Nicholas, why? Why is this so important? Why does a leader need to be a healer?
Well, first of all, thank you, Natalie.
You need your mic.
First of all, thank you, Natalie. Thank you to the Conduit. Hi, everybody, and hi to everyone who's watching online. So, the way I see things is it's obvious that we're at a very critical time in the world. Crisis of many kinds. Unfortunately, getting worse. And I think that a lot of it is a reflection of a very deep inner fracture in our culture, in our society. Because I think we've normalized a catastrophically limited and disconnected way of functioning. And by normalized, I mean it's just how things are, and we've forgotten until we wake up. For instance, in the last few months, 2 of my most senior clients have come to coaching sessions. It's one of the things I do. And each of them independently has basically said, Nicholas, I've just noticed at the conference I was at last week, or in our office, no one is really listening to anyone. Now, before, they didn't notice that. And I think that's a small symptom of our culture, because we've forgotten that listening means I'm fully here, embodied, emotionally connected, and when you speak to me, I hear your words and I feel you. And because we've got used to working and living in a way that is so dominated by left brain thinking, we have a very small perception of reality, relatively speaking. And above all, we've forgotten that thinking does not feel anything. I cannot experience the world with my thinking. I can think about the world, and that's a hugely important capacity. But as Einstein reminded us to question, is our mind our master or our servant? And in 95 or more % of the people I work with, the teams I work with, the business schools I work in, the mind has become the master. The thinking mind has become the master. And there is a disconnection from the body, deep disconnection from the body. There is a disconnection from the heart. There is a disconnection from our intuition. And there is a disconnection from the kind of deeper, spacious perception of reality that is at the heart of mindfulness and meditation. And so that has serious consequences, not least because we're having to navigate more and more complex challenges. And our linear left brain mind is not fit for purpose to do that. It needs to be one of our capacities, because our linear thinking mind always wants to reduce everything to the predictable, the known, and wants to make it understood. The reality is getting much too complex for that. So we need to be able to use our thinking mind, but we need to be able to locate ourselves in a much deeper place inside. We can call that place presence. One of the beautiful meanings of presence is I'm here and I'm available. But I'm really here. I'm in my body. My emotional body is open. My intuitive body is open. And therefore I'm available. So when I enter a room or when I'm engaged in a conversation, I am receiving what's happening around me. I'm not going out like that and leaving myself, which is what's happening most of the time. No, I'm here. I'm here. And when individuals and teams start to work with that, it's transformational. I'm engaged at the moment in running a leader as healer 3-month program for a big European law firm. And there's two of their top teams are going through it. And I spoke earlier in the week. I had a check-in with the top man who booked the program. Very, very enlightened man. And we've already had one retreat together. And he said, Nicholas, it's incredible because about 4 months ago, I stopped having our team meetings. And these are the heads of all the different functions. Because he said they were a waste of time. I said, let's do everything by email. However, he said, we had a meeting last week for the first time, and everyone had been on the retreat. And he said, Nicholas, I just sat back in awe. The connection, the trust, the energy between people. So there is an urgent need to break this coma. It's like a coma of disconnection. And we're all in it, so we accept it. It seems normal. But actually, we're longing for something different. Because if you look, everyone is looking for that deeper connection. Because we know deep down, it's like we're in exile. A few months back, actually, I was running a program at Said Business School for a very senior group from all over the world. And after about an hour of me talking, one man, a very, very senior diplomat, said, wow, he said, Nicholas, I understand something now. He said, I understand why I'm walking around almost daily with a kind of existential anxiety, because I've left my home. It was a very touching moment. And the whole room was like, wow, okay, I get that. We've left home. Part of our home is deep embodiment. Because when we were kids, we felt everything. We felt totally alive. Everything was a physical experience. And then, not by chance and not as a mistake, once we understand the nature of development, we close that down. We have to. We have to. And the way we close it down is we tense our breathing, we tense our body, and we lift. Any of you who know how to read energy, you see we lift out of our base. Our base is right down in the pelvis. We literally lift. And then we're living up here. We're living up here. And we're trying to navigate everything from up here. So when we work, like in all the work I do, we do deep somatic work, we do deep body work. And it's a revelation for people. It's a revelation. It really does feel like coming home. When I come back home, deep down in my body, and I walk. If we do a deep exercise, and then I invite people to go outside, and it's like, wow, wow. It can be a bliss, actually, kind of bliss. So, by operating in such a lifted way, out of our base, on the one hand, we do not come over as grounded, and in leadership, that's critical. When a leader walks into a room, she or he needs to transmit, I'm grounded. It makes people feel safe. Ungrounded leaders you do not feel good with. They may be brilliant, but you do not feel good with them. But there's something more important that we lose, which I think our culture has also very much forgotten, which is that our body is the source of unbelievable amounts of information. We really have forgotten that. There's an incredible world of subtle information available to us through our body. If you look at indigenous tribes, their relationship with the natural world, for instance, you see it loud and clear. They're feeling everything in the world through the body. And that's available to us. But we're so busy thinking, we've forgotten that. So, a lot of the leaders I work with, it's one of the most important parts of the work. It's like whole parts of us went offline. And when they start to come back online, reality changes. It's like you go to a good yoga class or exercise class and you really open the body and you come outside and for a few minutes, reality is different. Literally different, right? Your senses are open, the world is more vivid. And when I ask people to remember that kind of experience, which everyone does in one way or another, and then I say, okay, but in what percentage of your day do you feel like that in your body? Most people go like that. That's the state of our culture. Disembodied. And so because of that, we're also largely carrying a lot of unattended emotion. So leader as healer is someone who understands, first of all, there is no such thing as positive or negative emotion. This is just another fiction of our left brain. Because we don't feel safe to feel, and that's real, and we need to honor that. When we were kids growing up, we had many, many moments, small or in some cases really serious, where our emotional experience was not supported by the world. And the only thing we could do, and the most intelligent thing we could do, was to freeze it. To freeze it. But we carry that inside, it doesn't go away. So it's like we're walking around with whole parts of us frozen. And then we think we can do important strategy, important thinking on top of that. So There is a big work to do, first of all, for leader as healer with their own emotional self, until such point as they're comfortable with emotion. So in the middle of a meeting, where there's a lot of anxiety in the room, leader as healer will simply say, I think there's naturally a lot of tension here. I feel anxious these days. We're in a difficult time. Let's just acknowledge that together. And what happens? Everyone goes, thank you. Inside, thank you. Thank you. Just that we acknowledge that. We don't try and pretend. We don't try and make it go away. The last thing feelings need is to be exiled even more. The healing of feeling is simply feeling. Nothing needs transforming. Nothing needs fixing. We just need including. And it doesn't have to be big or dramatic. When teams are able to start doing that, it's incredible, because what happens is that once there is an inclusion of emotion, enormous amount of new ideas start flowing. Of course, because our nervous system becomes more relaxed. And then we become more receptive. And we say all the time in English, the idea came to me. The idea came to me, but it won't come to us when we're like that. We need to be in a more grounded, open, receptive state, and then tons of ideas come to us. And that's very exciting when that happens in a team. And the gateway is often the emotional. When I'm working with senior leadership groups, on the second day we get emotional. It takes a day for people to feel safe enough. It's all about safety. It's all about safety. And that's real, and we need to respect that, until suddenly it becomes okay to be emotional, and it's a huge relief. And then everything changes. People's presence changes. It's like they become almost like Technicolor rather than, or 3D, HD rather than slightly out of definition.
Nicholas, can I ask a quick question? Because he's just downloaded a huge amount of information. I don't know if you all understand everything he's spoken about. Just give some nods whether you feel like everything you totally understand. Okay, good. I would love to ask a question. How does, thinking from the leader point of view, because you're talking about how important all this is, and we all need to be living this way and acknowledging this way, how do you convert a leader who is really not open or hasn't even thought in this way to be able to start even beginning to think in this way? How do you start that journey?
Well, I'm not really interested in doing that, to be honest, because first of all, more and more leaders are. I'm not interested in taking someone who has no interest and trying to convince them. I think that's a waste of time, to be honest.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I agree.
Look,
that's climbing way too much of a mountain.
I'm working with a European law firm. Okay, that says a lot. And they booked leader as healer. I work at 2 of the world's top business schools with leader as healer. What is true is that at the beginning, I meet a very disconnected energy field. That's true. Very disconnected. So I gently download the topic. You see, even if I start with, as I usually do, with the theme of doing and being, everyone can understand that. And we go into it, and I say, okay, so doing is very left brain. Doing is proactive, it's very rational, it's very analytical. Being is much more right brain, much more receptive. And this goes back 3,500 years, yang and yin. Every culture has had a version of this. Everyone understands that. And everyone understands, more or less, that they're living in cultures where doing has become very over-dominant. It's not difficult to understand that. You'd have to be in serious denial. So
But there are a lot of people who are in denial.
I know, so let them be in denial. Once we get on board with that, then we can start to work. Then we do a deep physical exercise. I have everyone lying on the floor. I've done that with permanent secretaries here. I've done that with everyone, because I explain why we're going to do that. And after 45 minutes of that, people are already in a very different state.
You, by definition, have created a safe space.
Yes.
That's it. Yeah.
The biggest gateway is always the emotional, because we're all carrying a lot of unattended emotion, and it's difficult to feel that. That's why we make so many theories about negative emotion, positive emotion. We try and think our way through emotion. And we have to get to the point where we understand we can't do that anymore. It doesn't work. And I also, if I may say, something I'm speaking about more and more, and again, everyone gets it, and anyway, I did a lot of training with this, is that our emotional body has at least 3 parts. It has our personal experience since we were born. It also has the transgenerational transmission in our lineage. As someone once beautifully said, it's in my book, hurts are passed down through the generations until someone is ready to feel them. That's a profoundly true,
beautiful
understanding of reality. That we also, when I work, I say to people, we're going to study life here, and we're going to understand much more deeply how life actually works. And a lot of how life works is about energy. So if something happened in our lineage, or whatever it was, and our parents or grandparents have a lot of frozen energy, that comes to us. And we know that now from research. It's not so new anymore. It's in the commons that now. That comes to us. There's no escape. And we can't get rid of it by thinking. The third level is the collective. So for instance, I have two African-American chief execs I work with, and it's been really amazing to work with them, because we've gradually made it safe enough that there are times when they really contact the collective level that's in their genes, it's in their DNA. And how do we do that? Something happens that is really bothering them. And because of my training, I feel it's not like an odor, because actually I have no sense of smell. It's like a feeling. I can feel, okay, we're touching a collective frequency here. Meaning this is connected to a long, deep trauma in their being, which comes from being African American. And it's like we take the elevator down inside the body. Obviously, they're by now willing to do this. And then we hit it feelingly. And because of my training, I'm not going to fix it. I'm going to totally welcome you in that. Totally make it safe enough that we can feel that horror. And we do. And then gradually something melts. The way energy works is that when we become one with it, it metabolizes in our body. Metabolizes, and it goes from being stuck to being in flow, which is what acupuncture does as well. So sometimes I think that we're doing kind of acupuncture here. It's like we find the exact point where something is really stuck, and we sit with it, and we feel it. And being received in that is essential. We cannot do that alone. None of us can. We have to have an unconditional presence that's giving us that possibility. So leader as healer also transmits that in their teams, because most teams function along the lines of they know what they can say and not say to their leader. right? They know what he or she is comfortable with or uncomfortable with. So everything is tailored around this very small reality. Leader as healer creates a much bigger game board, so people can show up with much more. And it takes time and it takes maturity. It's not that we're going to have endless emotional drama. No. We're going to find the exact precise way to include emotion. And if you need to work on yourself, you do that with a coach or a mentor. But in our group team field, we include emotion.
Yeah, I was going to ask that because it's very deep work. And to ask corporates to go into that kind of space, or a leader, or working with your teams, it can be quite scary. So where do you find the balance of, do you end up taking someone to a personal and say, okay, let's do something personal to go deeper with you as opposed to with the group?
Yes, I do. And obviously I'm working with the leaders of teams. So by them working with their own emotional material, they become people who can hold a safe space. But for instance, in this 3-month program I'm doing at the moment, every single person has a one-to-one coach from my team as well. And they are doing deep work with that. You know, and I have people who recognized for the first time when we were together the degree of transgenerational trauma they're carrying. Really, for the first time. They knew about it, but suddenly they could feel it. And that's very moving when that happens.
That's very profound. And when they embody it, and then they're able to actually cut the karmic contract or release it, or it's a big, beautiful release. Do you find you might have the leaders who are very open because they've gotten to that level, they're open, and that's why they come to you. Have you had big moments of resistance in the process where all of a sudden they shut down, and how do you resolve over that, and can you? You might not get it because you just might be creating a safe environment that's always safe.
It's a constant negotiation. It's a constant negotiation because we're always at the edge. And I have to just trust the process. I don't like the word resistance, by the way.
We spoke earlier about the importance
because
of words.
The word resistance
sounds
negative. It gives an impression that it would be better not. Inclusion means, like, if you tell me you're numb, I completely meet you in that. I don't say, oh, let's see what you're feeling underneath that. Let's get past the numbness. No. Your numbness is a very important function within you. And if we meet that lovingly, then we'll see what happens. Let's be intimate with whatever is inside. That's a profound principle. Even on a wider picture, one of the biggest obstacles to change, paradoxically, is that we try to change. Meaning, we try to get somewhere before we fully meet what's here. And we try to do that because meeting what's here is uncomfortable. But it's only when we fully meet what's here, individually and collectively as an organization, that actually a deep change starts to happen. It's the only way. Why do so many change initiatives fail? Because we're always trying to get somewhere else rather than being more fully here. And that's a profound rewrite in leadership. It's to be, like, for instance, let's say we're lost. It's very common now. A team feels lost. We don't know what to do. So the default is we have to fix that. It's not good to feel lost. We have to get out of this as quickly as possible. It doesn't work. We invent some strategy that gives us the feeling that we're not lost anymore. No. What would it be like to sit together and acknowledge that we're lost, feel the discomfort of that, and then something starts to happen that we could not possibly predict. This is how life works. really. That's why I say we're studying life when we do this work.
It also, I think, it gets more beautiful when you live that way, because everything's much more connected, no? So it's like everything becomes more eased, and you can walk through life with more grace, which makes it easier. Can I ask, how did you come to write this book?
It bothered me in the sense that I think about 3.5, 4 years ago, I suddenly started thinking the word leader as healer. It was like it came to me. And I was like, what's that? It's a bit of a strange term. But it kind of really started working in me. And I tentatively mentioned it to some clients, wondering what they would think, and they were like, no, yes, yes. I got a very big kind of affirmation. And I kind of knew that this was another level of my work. It was like if you could call it, a kind of new archetype that was landing. So I listened and listened, and then I started writing, and I'm not a natural writer. It's quite a painful process, writing, so I got help at different points. And now, the response is, what could be a more appropriate term? It's amazing. It's like, what a fantastic use of the words. I think 5 years ago, leader as healer would have had very little traction. People would have been like, what are you talking about? Now it speaks, I think, I've seen in the response to the book.
No, it's amazing because it's the right time, and it's the right time to be heard, and it's coming out beautifully. When you think about, what would you define as, when you think about healer, the word specifically?
So for me, the healing is the healing of our fragmentation. It's the healing of our disconnection. It's the bringing back online the parts of us that have been put into exile. So it's individual, it's team, and it's organizational in the end. And of course that includes purpose. I do a lot of deep work with purpose. And in purpose, there are two particular questions that I like to work with, which I think, again, bring people into a more holistic intelligence in themselves. And one question is, what is the work that is mine to do? And it's very precise language. What is the work that is mine to do? It's not what I could do, should do. It's like it invites us to go deep inside and live into the answer of that. It's something we'll live into over many years in a way. But it takes me deep into who I really am. What are my real gifts, my passions, my inspiration? As a very good friend of mine said, what is it that breaks your heart? And so it's really the essence of my contribution. What is the work that is mine to do? And then there's another level of question, which is, what is it that is being asked of me now? And that's a whole other level of listening, very far beyond my ego. And we do beautiful work, actually, in teams and groups, usually towards the end. We get into a deep dyad around what is the work that is mine to do. And people come up, it's like they hear new answers to that. And then we sometimes sit in a whole group meditation in a circle, and we meditate on the question, what is it that is being asked of us now? And when the group presence is really open, we start to hear incredible statements. And people start to do some incredible things that they would never have thought of because they're hearing this, what I call in the last chapter, the call. The call. What is it I'm being called to do? And when I align with that, I'm living in a different way. It's really not about me. And life takes on a quite different dimension.
I love the vision of being with your team and really calling that in and saying, what is it that we are here to do? Like literally bring in the leader as healer. That is truly it, because you're inviting everyone to build something together and to know that it's not just the leader. Talking about that, what would you like to say about ego? Because that's quite an interesting topic in itself.
It's actually not a word I like very much. I don't use that word. I really don't.
I understand, by the way.
Because it's got so many meanings. So, what I would say is that there is a point where we need to really look at whether I'm actually relating to the outside, or whether I'm seeing everything just through my own bubble. And that's with people as well. Like I said at the very beginning, what is it like to really listen to somebody? Because that's a multi-level process. And that's the meaning of presence. That's the meaning of presence. So by the way, this gets very practical as well. Because I teach practices that help us stay rooted and grounded. One of the most fundamental practices that you find in many traditions, actually, is what does it mean to have inner and outer attention at the same time? We can do that. Are you up for doing a little exercise? Yeah? Anyone who's online can do this as well, watching on YouTube. So you can do this eyes open or eyes closed, whatever you feel comfortable with. But just switch on your capacity to pay attention. This has nothing to do with your thinking. So for instance, just begin by noticing your breathing. You're going to slow down to do this. So you notice the sensations of your in-breath and your out-breath. You notice the movements in your body. You notice every little subtle sensation. You're not trying to stop thinking. You let your thinking happen in the background, but you pay attention. And as you do this, you can also gently use your out-breath. Use your out-breath in the sense of each time you breathe out, relax your out-breath. So you go down more inside. So the lower half of your torso comes more online. You feel you're sitting more. Just feel how you do that with the out-breath. You soften. It's literally like your body starts to come online more. Maybe you start to feel your legs more. Just through paying attention, there's nothing to change, nothing to understand. You're just noticing your body more. And particularly the lower part of your body, your stomach, your pelvis, your sitting. And then ask yourself, how would it be if in a moment I would open my eyes, but I would choose very deliberately, very intentionally, to maintain my inner attention. Just imagine how that will be. You can begin by practicing that, by just noticing all the sounds that are around. So you notice your breathing, you notice your sitting, and at the same time you notice all the sounds. Just notice as you're breathing. And so it will be the same with the sense of seeing. You're going to gently open your eyes, maybe just half open your eyes at first, till you get used to having an inner attention, even as you open your eyes. Just play with that for yourself. Yeah. Great. So what I then teach as a way of anchoring this is the difference between what I call a backward circle and a forward circle. It's something I learned maybe 30 years ago from a Zen master I trained with for 2 years. And the forward circle, which we're on most of the time as a habit, is I come up and I go out. Just let's do that together on an in-breath. I go towards the world like that, and I lose a contact with my base. You hear my voice changes as well. And now I come back and down, back and down, and I feel my sitting again. I feel grounded. That's the backward circle. His message was very simple. He said, anytime you notice you're on a forward circle, get off it. Simple, profound message, because it changes everything. And people I work with really use this. It's an image, but it's a real feeling as well. Moment to moment, any conversation you're in. Are you up and out, or are you back and down? Where you're much more receptive, where you have a much wider field of perception. Shall we see if there are any questions?
Absolutely. I was going to say, if there's questions, and the other thing I was just say, if you would want to say your biggest example of transformation you've seen with someone you've worked with, just as in like to give an example of like where they really were, you opened them up and changed, to give something practical for people to hold on to see. It could be your favorite story.
I have many stories in the book, so I can't really give...
Okay, so then everyone just has to read the book. That's okay. So then we
there are
can
many, many stories, and some people I work with over a long period of time, and their whole reality just changed. And normally they're very successful when they come. It's not like something is not working, but they know that something could be better. There has to be a starting point. And anyway, people come by recommendation. And I don't have much space for new clients anyway. And when someone does come now, it's very nice, because I absolutely don't need new clients. So I say to them, even if you say you want to work with me, go away and think about it, because we're going to go deep. And I don't want to persuade you. If you're ready, we'll work.
I think that's beautiful. I could tell you were very busy and that you potentially might not have room for new people who might want to join. But I have to say, one of the beautiful things about the book is that you give so many practical tools to actually help people. So that's the brilliance of the book, and it's fantastic to be able to share it with so many people. And so everyone, and I also would just say, I think this book is not just for leaders, it's for everyone.
I agree, and
So
actually, many
it's
people.
everyone is a leader. Like
Many
so,
people
yeah.
find their personal life obviously changes. You know, one example. I remember a New York CEO I was coaching, and he told me, okay, so at the end of the day, I go home, I open my front door, my 2 boys are always waiting for me in the hallway. So I said to him, okay, so when you open the door and you see your 2 boys, do you feel how different they are? Do you feel that each of them has a completely different need from you? He said, no. So you're asleep. You're asleep. So he really started working with that.
And
So it changes everything. Presence is not just for work. Why would I want to be present only at work?
And I would say that that's also especially it's for everyone. And also talking about purpose doesn't also mean to be linked to work, because sometimes people really link the two. Sometimes purpose is, I want to bring up my kids in the most beautiful way, or I want to be in the most loving relationship in the most beautiful way. Those things are just as valuable as trying to do and create a big company or whatever it is that you're trying to do.
Totally.
So Q&A, would anyone like to ask Nicholas any questions?
I think I can speak loud enough, if that's okay for everybody else. Okay, can you hear me? Yeah. In working with the emotional body, you spoke about the 3 areas, or the 3 different types of emotional bodies. Is it about integrating the 3 types, or is it about moving beyond?
It's very much, very much about integrating. There's no reason to move beyond. Our emotions are a fundamental part of our humanity. What it is about is gaining. You know, it's very interesting because in this hyper left brain world, we're remarkably imprecise in so many ways. So one of the precisions we need to develop is to know what's what. So when an emotion is arising, what's its composition? Like, is this an emotion I've carried since I was 4 years old, or is it now? Does it have this feeling of lineage? And does it have sometimes a collective element? That's a precision. And once we know the difference, it's not that the work is different, because the work is always, let's be with this, let's feel this. But recognizing what we're meeting is important. And actually one of the principles in the work, speaking about precision, it's a very interesting and beautiful part of the work, is that we learn to speak much more precisely. Because most people, for instance, if I say, tell me how you're feeling. So what happens? Thinking goes out here and gives me endless narrative, which has nothing to do with what's actually happening. So in this work, we speak about reuniting word and energy. And for instance, I have a friend who does a lot of work in schools, amazing work. And from a very young age, he's teaching children to do that. It's so important. From about 7 onwards, here's a whole range of words for your emotions. Let's learn to be precise. Because when word and energy are more aligned, we're much more present and grounded. So in all the work we do with individuals and teams, this is a huge practice. And I have to constantly stop people. No, stop this narrative. What's happening now? And the more we learn to do that, the more the energy of presence enters the room. And then we're much more connected. I went off a bit, but that was important to say. Word and energy. It's unbelievable. No wonder most team meetings are a waste of time, which a lot of people say they are, because it's blah, 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 blah out here. There's no substance whatsoever. Even people use language like inspiration, but it's completely disconnected. And we, as a coach, we have to call people constantly on that. Even to say sometimes, just a minute, you used that word, what do you really mean? What do you really mean? And someone starts to explain what they really mean, and it has nothing to do with that word. It's casual, it's lazy, it's imprecise the way we talk. And it's a big, I get passionate about this.
No, but it's funny.
It's bullshit, let's put it simply.
He's passionate about it, and just before we
and
start
by the way,
speaking-
I'm very, once I get into good relation with the group, I don't compromise, and they take it because they understand. We have to challenge this laziness with language. It's so interesting. Here am I from an artistic background. The arts world is so much more precise than the business world. It's fascinating.
No, it's true. And so Nicholas comes from a theater background, and you can really tell. And it's also the same with the precision of the words. Like I find everyone who I know who's in theater, they are super precise with their words. And when I came in to see him today, I was like, well, I'm dyslexic, and I'm really bad with my words, and I really don't associate that much with my words. I focus on energy. And he's like, I think I better work with you. So I'm looking forward to my sessions.
Thank you for your question. Any other questions? Just a moment.
Thank you. It's more of a comment, really. To me, this feels like a philosophy and almost like it should be a movement, because if we take this on the global scale and we see this noise and we hear this disconnect, and in the world of disconnection with social media, and I see it in our young people, I'm from the theatre background, and I'm also in the business world now, so I understand this. But I find it so frustrating and so upsetting, because we can see the world in pain, we can see what needs to be done, and even when we do get a healer as leader in a position of power, somehow they seem to be thwarted. And I just wonder, as a being here with similar sort of feelings, I assume, and what I expect, is that what can we do as a community to try and instill your philosophy, to become a movement, to really see real change in the world? And it's sort of something that I don't quite know what the answer is, but it's just open to discussion, really.
Yeah, well, first of all, let's honour your passion for that. And I think, everyone needs to find what's the work that's mine to do. And what I'm saying is there is a whole movement. There are many different thought leaders. I think one thing that's very important is to create community, because we cannot develop on our own. I have small groups where I go to do my inner work. When something is happening in me, I can't process it on my own. We can't. We have to have reflection. So, in this organization I'm working with, they all have a buddy now. So they know to have calls and they understand that when we have a call, it's to what's happening. Let's give a space to feel. So I would say that we need to have more and more communities who meet on that level. That's one of the answers. And then we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. The world is in deep shit. That we know. But we don't know what's going to happen.
But it's also, there is a movement happening. And that's what, I think that's what's so exciting. It's softer, but it's coming quite fast, and it's coming quite strong, and there are a lot of people who are jumping on the bandwagon. And I think that's why it's also really important to come together. Because the more we come together, it's like we're the light workers who have to fight for the light. We have to change our ways. Right now, what's happening with the world is devastating. And what's happening to us as people, we have so many people who are just so not happy, who are taking too many pills, all these kinds of things. So we really have to find out how to come together, the people who are interested and passionate in this, and to be able to move forward and work together and make things happen. And that's the paradigm shift.
On an optimistic note, there is more and more openness
Totally.
now, because there's more and more fracture and suffering and mental health problems. So there is a deeper than ever listening. There really is, yeah.
Nicholas, do you want to say something about the paradigm shift?
Let's just
Okay,
hear.
yeah.
Yeah, 2 more questions.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you. I have many questions about the content you just gave us, but I'll just read the book for that one. I'm going to ask a more practical question because I want to know what your journey has been. Seems to be a lot of neuroscience influence in what you're doing, some spirituality in it. Could you tell us what are the different sources and vectors that you have worked through that brought you here?
That would take some while, and actually the last part of the book is my story, which tries to track that. I did have a big spontaneous kind of awakening when I was 16, which changed everything. And I didn't expect that to happen, and it really changed reality for me, and meant that from then on, that was the center of my life. So what I would say is that all through since then, deep body work has been essential. Deep body work, and I've done some very kind of extreme trainings which change my body. Not as in I can do more interesting movement, but from the inside. And then years of different emotional work, which I still do, and then I trained on how to work with collective and intergenerational energy, and I ran ongoing groups in Israel, in New York, in England. And I have studied many different disciplines, psychological and spiritual. I think what's most important, and in a way the last 5 years have brought me that, is the understanding that we have to work with the highest parts and the darkest parts. And meditation will not solve emotional issues. I wished for many years that it would. It would be much easier if it did, but it doesn't. We have to, not necessarily in a therapeutic way, but we have to find a way, like with acupuncture, to touch into the places that are most hurt. At the same time, we haven't talked about meditation, how important that is, because it gives us a different perception of life when we meditate. But there is a whole, much more detailed story in the book, as I have been through many trainings.
And on that note, I think we have to finish, because I think time's up, am I right? Time's up, but Nicholas, talk after.
Yeah, I'm happy to stay. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Natalie.
No, thank you,
to the
Nicholas, for writing.
Conduit.
And go get your book. It's great. It's great.